4 men just got convicted of first-degree murder for killing Foolio, and the state of Florida is coming for their lives. Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, Davian Murphy, all 4 guilty, all 4 now staring down the death penalty. The penalty phase started this week, and the prosecution wants every single one of them to die by lethal injection for what they did to Charles Jones on his 26th birthday in Tampa, Florida. In the rap world, the rap world has been loud about this. From the moment Foolio hit the ground in that Holiday Inn parking lot back on June 23, 2024, the street's been talking. His rivals dropped diss tracks on his death. His enemies celebrated on social media. His mom had to watch her son's killers cry in court. And now, those same people who was laughing, who was popping bottles of Don Julio on their stories, who was making jokes, they sitting in front of a jury that has the power to send them to Florida's death row. Y'all need to hear every single part of this story, because this ain't just about Foolio's death. This is about the consequences of a culture that glorifies beef until the beef bites back, and bites back hard. This is about who said what, who stayed silent, who showed out, and who is now realizing that real street politics have real courtroom endings. Let's get into it. To understand why this verdict is landing the way it is across hip-hop, we gotta go all the way back and understand exactly who Charles Andrew Jones II was. Because Foolio wasn't just another Jacksonville rapper. He was one of the most polarizing, most controversial, most real nuttas to ever pick up a mic and tell the absolute unfiltered truth about what was happening on the streets of Jacksonville, Florida. Born June 21, 1998 in Jacksonville's Moncrief neighborhood, Foolio came up hard. His father, Charles Andrew Jones, was murdered in a shooting back in 2011 when Foolio was just 13 years old. Let that sink in. His dad got killed when he was barely in middle school. He didn't just grow up around violence, gang. Violence took the most important person in his world when he was still a child. So when people say Foolio was built for the streets, that ain't glorifying nothing. That's just the reality of what this man was handed, and he ran with 6 Block, which was affiliated with a set called KTA. Kill Them All. And by the time he started making music, he wasn't rapping about the streets to look cool. He was rapping about the streets because the streets were literally eating everybody around him alive. Cousins, friends, brothers. And he was chronicling it all, track by track, with names and faces and no filter whatsoever. His beef with Youngin Ace, and with Ace's crew, ATK, Ace's top killers, goes back to 2017 when Foolio's 18-year-old cousin Zion Malik Brown was shot and killed in his own home. The streets say that killing kicked off a war that wouldn't stop for years. Ace got shot in a retaliatory hit in 2018. His brother and 2 friends were killed in that same attack. And from that point on, the body count kept rising, the diss tracks kept coming, and the music became a real-time documentary of a gang war that nobody seemed willing to stop. Tracks like When I See You, his response to Ace's Who I Smoke, made Foolio a national name. Those songs weren't just rap beef. Prosecutors literally used them as evidence in a murder trial. That tells you everything about the level at which this man was living and dying. He survived shooting after shooting. Houston in 2023, Jacksonville in October 2023, shot in the foot, damn near lost it. Multiple attempts on his life. By April 2024, just 2 months before his death, Foolio himself posted on Instagram about the tragic multiple attempts on my life. He saw it coming. He knew. But he was Foolio. He wasn't going to hide. He was going to celebrate his birthday in Tampa, post his location, and live his life. And that decision, that Instagram flyer posted on June 14, 2024, letting everyone know he'd be in Tampa for his birthday, is what prosecutors say started the clock on his murder. Here's the real tea on how this went down, because the details of this night are cold-blooded in a way that goes beyond street beef. This was a coordinated mission. Prosecutors laid out the timeline in that Tampa courtroom with receipts. 2 weeks before Foolio's birthday, once that Instagram flyer dropped announcing he'd be in Tampa, the planning began. Isaiah Chance, 23 years old. Sean Gathright, 20 years old. Rashad Murphy, 32. Davian Murphy, 29, and Chance's girlfriend, Alicia Andrews, 23. She booked the Airbnb in Tampa on June 21st. She was the setup woman, the honey trap. She tracked Foolio's location all night. June 22nd, the night before the murder, these 4 men drove from Jacksonville to Tampa. They came armed, they came masked, they came with pistols and rifles. This was not a spontaneous situation, gang. These people put on their masks, grabbed their weapons, and drove across the state with one purpose: to end Foolio's life. Foolio threw his birthday pool party at the Airbnb. Police shut it down due to overcrowding. He posted in his Instagram story, "Best birthday ever, appreciate everybody who pulled up. We turned up till we couldn't no more. We on the way to the show now, y'all pull up." Those were among the last words he ever publicly shared. The party relocated to a Holiday Inn near the University of South Florida, and that's when the two-car convoy moved in. Chance and Andrews tracked Foolio in a silver Chevrolet Cruze. Gathright and the Murphy cousins followed in a Chevrolet Impala.
Jones was in town celebrating his birthday and posted on his social media his locations several times throughout that night. Surveillance video was critical in this investigation, as suspects were seen on video following Jones from location to location.
At approximately 4:37 a.m. on June 23, 2024, 2 days after his 26th birthday, Charles Jones was sitting inside a vehicle in the hotel parking lot when the shooters moved in. Pistols and rifles opened fire. 31 9mm shell casings were recovered from the scene. 3 others were wounded. Foolio was shot in the heart, lungs, and aorta. He never made it out of that parking lot alive. A Tesla parked nearby captured the whole thing on surveillance. That footage became key evidence.
In the early morning hours of Sunday, June 23rd, Jacksonville rapper Charles Jones arrived at Teaser's Gentlemen's Club in Tampa for a paid performance.
He's a gentleman wearing the red beanie hat.
That's Tampa Police Homicide Detective Juan Ramos identifying the rapper, known as Julio Foolio, in new surveillance video from the club's parking lot. Suspects Alicia Andrews, Isaiah Chance, and Sean Gathright watched this video in court Thursday, too. All 3 face charges in Jones's death in what investigators say was an ongoing rival gang war. After leaving Teasers, the rapper went down the street to Truth 18 nightclub for an after party, posting on social media in live time.
This is the video here from his Instagram.
Surveillance video from outside that club shows how 2 suspect vehicles continued to follow Jones, just as they did at Teasers, and eventually to the Home 2 suites near USF.
They're approaching the victim's position on foot.
Video from the hotel and a parked Tesla show 3 shooters firing several shots at the vehicle Jones was riding in, killing him.
And you want to know how brazen these people were? After Foolio was dead, Rashad Murphy posted Tom Brady and Bill Belichick celebrating a Super Bowl on his Instagram. Posted it like a victory. Posted another one that said, "Hate me kindly." And Davion Murphy, when he got arrested and was sitting in an interrogation room, surveillance caught him acting out the shooting, mimicking the murder, on camera, in a police station. That ain't street politics, fam. That's straight evil. And Florida's justice system just said the same thing. Guilty on all charges: first-degree premeditated murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, attempted second-degree murder for the other victims. Every single count.
These individuals took extreme measures to try to cover their actions, but they were no match for our investigators. Isaiah Chance, Elisa Andrews, Sean Gathright, Davion Murphy, and Rashard Murphy are all accused of playing a role in Jones's death and are all charged with 1 count of murder in the first degree premeditated with the discharge of a firearm, and 1 count of conspiracy of murder in the first degree premeditated with the discharge of a firearm.
Now here's where it gets crazy, because the reaction to Foolio's death from the rap community was one of the most chaotic, most revealing moments in hip-hop in 2024. No fake unity. No coordinated RIP posts. What happened exposed exactly who people really were. The first person to move publicly, Youngin Ace, his biggest rival, the man whose crew was directly connected to everything that led to this war. Within hours of Foolio being pronounced dead, Ace dropped a song called "Do It" on the same day. While Foolio's body was still being processed at the scene, Ace put out a track where he rapped lines about catching an ass slipping, about being tinted and armed, about men coming up missing. The internet went absolutely insane. Fans immediately started saying Ace orchestrated the hit, and then it got even deeper. An anonymous video surfaced online on July 5th, 2024, where a masked man claimed credit for the shooting and said there was money on Foolio's head. He claimed Ace and ATK were behind the bounty the police were watching.
Ace had that money on his head, you know, Ace had them put that 10K up. Told me to slide, told me to smack Foolio. Hey, on everything I love, bro. On the dead homies, bro. I put it on everything on my soul, on my kids, nigga. I'm the one that smacked Julio Foolio that night when he got dropped at his birthday celebration, bro.
Law enforcement issued a public statement saying they were monitoring Youngin Ace's social media accounts.
So Youngin Ace has long been known in Jacksonville. We are consistently monitoring those groups. We have people that are always watching them. I won't speak to the chief's investigation. That's up to TPD. We don't have an investigation on him right now, but he can't move around in Jacksonville without us knowing about it. And that's for the betterment of our community.
That's how serious it got. Then on July 21st, 3 weeks later, Ace hopped on Instagram Live and finally addressed it. And his tone was completely different from Do It. He said, "That ain't sad, I ain't gonna lie, bruh. Leave the streets alone, playa. I don't condone saint like that." He then claimed he and Foolio had actually been on good terms before the murder, saying he told him to stay out of the way and that he loved him. He said, "I was just talking to him and I was like, bruh, you gotta stay out of the way. You know, a neno love you out here. IFK with you. Real seat." The internet didn't buy it for 1 second. The body language, the timing, the Do It track released on the same day. People clocked all of it. Comments were ruthless. He's just trying to clear his name. The consensus was that Ace knew he was in legal crosshairs and was cleaning up his public image. Then there was Charleston White. If Ace was controversial, Charleston White was flat out reckless. The man hopped on Instagram Live the same day Foolio died and said, and I'm keeping it real with y'all, he said Foolio worked hard to die. He said nobody should be sad because of how Foolio carried himself.
All I'm gonna say is, man, that nigga works hard to die. Shit, he earned this here. Shit, nigga, and goddamn it, should nobody be sad? Way that nigga lived and talked gangster, should nobody be sad what done happened to Julio Foolio? One thing we know about it, he didn't go to heaven.
He referenced the multiple shootings, the foot injury, even took shots at the fact that Foolio was at a Holiday Inn. He went, "At the Holiday Inn? What the fuck? Ain't no protection on a Nana Mall at the Holiday Inn. They ain't even got valet parking."
At the Holiday Inn? What the fuck? Man, nigga ain't no protection on a nigga at the Holiday Inn. They ain't even got valet parking.
And then he said Foolio deserved it because he used to rap at rival gang members' graves and made people's mothers cry.
Yeah, now one thing about it, he ain't in heaven. Nah, wait, that boy, listen, he had all the time in the world to apologize to them people. He was going to the graveyard, rapping at the graveyard. Man, that nigga making people mama cry. So shit, it's some people relieved, wiping their forehead saying, "Ooh, Lord, thank you."
Look, Charleston White says a lot of things, no cap, but what made this different was he was making those comments while Foolio's body was still warm, before the family even made a statement. And instead of losing support, the clip went viral. Millions of views. People were debating whether he was wrong or brutally right. It showed you exactly the kind of divided response Foolio's death was going to generate, because not everyone in hip-hop was crying. Foolio's girlfriend, Monty, posted on X, "Y'all took my boyfriend from me. I hate y'all and I won't be the only one crying." His lawyer, Louis Fusco, confirmed the death on Instagram story, asking fans to respect the family's privacy. Jacksonville rapper Nadalak, the guy who put Foolio on a track back in 2018 when he was just a kid coming up, said Foolio was one of the most respectful people he'd worked with, the kind of person who didn't match the persona people had of him. That contrast between who Foolio was in private versus the public image became a running theme in how people remembered him. Joe Budden reacted on his podcast, addressing the cultural implications. The culture was talking, nationally. Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters held a press conference saying the violence surrounding Jacksonville's drill scene wasn't cool and warning that his department would follow people close to Foolio one at a time if necessary.
Well, this is not a game, is my message. This is not something that we're going to tolerate around town. I think the media, I think the citizens of Jacksonville, I think everyone feels the same way. This is not something that's okay. This is not something we're going to tolerate, and we're going to pay very close attention. So don't get involved. Stay away from the nonsense.
The ripple effects weren't just in rap, they hit law enforcement policy. But wait, it gets even weirder, because Foolio's Instagram account started posting after his death, like days and weeks after he was buried. Somebody on his account posted, "Just know I'm still here. Once the time is allowed, I'll shock the world. You can't kill a demigod, I'm still here." Another post had his face photoshopped onto the Undertaker rising from a coffin. The account posted, "Still here, still standing, new music on the way," and claimed Foolio's grandmother did voodoo. Nobody knew if it was a hack or someone from his circle. His mom had to come out and address it. The whole situation became a circus on top of a tragedy. Here's where the legal machinery started grinding, gang. And the case that prosecutors built was thorough, meticulous, digital-age detective work that left no wiggle room. The cell phone records placed every one of the 4 men in Tampa at the time of the killing. The surveillance footage from the hotel and from that nearby Tesla captured the attack directly. Shell casing analysis connected the gunfire to 3 specific shooters and 2 suspect vehicles. A digital breadcrumb trail, Instagram posts, text messages, location data documented their coordinated mission from Jacksonville to Tampa and back. And remember, Alicia Andrews booked the Airbnb in Tampa on June 21st. That receipt existed. Her text messages showed she was tracking Foolio's location all night. Text messages between Chance and Gathright showed them trying to figure out exactly where Foolio was in the city as the night progressed. They were hunting him in real time, cross-referencing his Instagram stories with their own surveillance. A 5th suspect, Alicia Andrews herself, was arrested separately and tried first. In October 2025, a jury found her guilty of manslaughter for acting as a lookout and feeding Foolio's location to the shooters. Lesser charge because she didn't pull the trigger, but she was convicted. She's still awaiting sentencing as of right now because her lawyers got Judge Michelle Cisco removed for alleged bias and a new judge had to be assigned. The 4 main defendants, Chance, Gathright, Rashad, and Davian Murphy, went to trial starting April 22nd, 2026, and for 9 days straight, that Tampa courtroom heard everything. Witness testimony from hotel guests who woke up to what they thought was a bomb going off. Ballistics experts breaking down the 31 shell casing. Detectives assigned specifically to watch both the ATK gang and the 6 Block gang explaining the war that had been brewing for years. Surveillance footage shown in open court. Text messages read aloud. The music video titled "Foolio Dead," released by a rival gang just days after the shooting, entered into evidence. One of the most damning moments? Prosecutors showed jurors footage of Sean Gathright trying to escape from a police interrogation room through a ceiling vent after his arrest, like on some straight movie type stuff. He literally tried to break out through the ceiling tiles. That footage ran in court and sealed something in those jurors' minds about who these people were. After 7 hours of deliberation on May 8, 2026, the jury came back. Guilty, 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 all 4. First-degree premeditated murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Every count. No splits, no partial verdicts. Everything the prosecution asked for, delivered. State Attorney Susie Lopez stood outside that courthouse and said, "These defendants brought a gang war from Jacksonville into Hillsborough County, and their violence ends here." Now this is where the story is at right now, fam. Because as of this week, May 13th, 2026, those 4 convicted killers are sitting in that Tampa courtroom in the penalty phase, and the state of Florida is pushing hard for the death penalty on all 4 of them. Let me break down how Florida's death penalty works because people need to understand what's at stake. Florida law requires at least 8 out of 12 jurors to agree on a death recommendation. It doesn't have to be unanimous. 8 votes are enough to recommend death. The judge then makes the final call. And what makes this case a prime candidate for the death penalty is the aggravating factors. The premeditation, the coordinated nature of the attack, the fact that multiple victims were wounded, the fact that innocent hotel guests had bullets flying into their rooms that night. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment crime. This was a military-style operation to execute one man on his birthday. On Tuesday, May 12th, Sean Gathright, the youngest defendant at just 20 years old, took the witness stand in his own defense during the penalty phase. He said, "I'm not here to dispute anything. I'm here to be a man and take responsibility and express my feelings about this whole situation." He broke down on the stand. He cried. He issued an apology to Foolio's family saying, "I want to say my deepest condolences. I understand that it's hard losing a child, a best friend, a brother, a cousin. For that, I just cannot say sorry enough. He acknowledged he would spend the rest of his life in prison but vowed to better himself. Here's where it gets crazy. One of the other convicted killers had previously claimed during the trial that Foolio's diss tracks aimed at their crew gave his grandmother a heart attack, had the nerve to claim that Foolio's music caused real-world harm to his family as a way of humanizing himself to the jury. Meanwhile, Rashad Murphy had literally posted celebration memes on Instagram the night Foolio died. And on the other side, Foolio's mother, Sandricus Mays. This woman is the realest person in this whole story. She submitted a victim impact statement that was read aloud in court. She had already been vocal. On Mother's Day weekend, when the verdict came back May 8th, she went live on Instagram with bottles of Don Julio, referencing her son's Julio Foolio name, and posted a picture of one of the convicted killers crying in court. She captioned it, "Justice for Foolio, the right get back. GUILTY as charged. We all gonna cry together." What they say? Pop a bottle of Don Julio. Let's drink up. You see what she did there? The same bottle they were supposedly using to mock her son after his death. She flipped it into a victory toast on Conviction Day. That's a mother who fought for 2 years and finally got something back. And the culture noticed. Foolio's fans, the people who've been watching this case since the beginning, flooded social media when that guilty verdict dropped. The verdict was trending. People who'd never heard of Foolio before were learning his story through the trial coverage on Court TV, which live-streamed the entire proceedings. A new generation of viewers was watching this gang war play out in a courtroom in Tampa and getting a masterclass in how the streets eventually come to collect. Now let's talk about the rappers who posted about Foolio and what their silence or their words actually meant in the context of this whole situation. Because this is where the culture conversation gets real. Meek Mill is somebody who has spoken extensively about criminal justice reform, about how the system grinds up young black men, about the cycle of violence that the streets create. He's been through it personally with his own probation situation. When someone like Foolio dies, a young black rapper from a city consumed by gang war, killed before 30, survived by a mother who spent 2 years fighting for justice, that's exactly the type of situation that should generate commentary from someone in Meek's position. And the question the culture was asking was, where are the big voices? Where are the rappers who talk about reform and change when a case like this one is laying bare every single thing wrong with the cycle? Young Thug, who at the time of Foolio's death was still deep in his own RICO case in Atlanta, knew this world all too well. The entire YSL RICO trial was the legal system using rap lyrics as evidence of gang activity, using social media posts and music videos to construct conspiracy charges. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what happened in Foolio's case. Prosecutors played a music video titled "Foolio Dead" that was released by the rival gang days after the murder. Rap lyrics in court. It's the same playbook. The question of whether rap music should be used as criminal evidence is one that Young Thug, Meek Mill, and dozens of other artists have weighed in on in the past. This case just gave that argument an entirely new, brutally concrete example. The broader rapper community's reaction to Foolio's death revealed a truth about how hip-hop handles its own losses. There's a tier system. When a mainstream giant like Nipsey Hussle was killed, the entire industry stopped. Every artist, every executive, everybody came out. The mourning was national and unified. When someone like Foolio, who was famous in Florida, famous in the streets, real to the culture but not yet crossed over to mainstream awards shows and magazine covers, gets killed, the reaction is more fractured. Some people posted, some people stayed quiet, some people dropped diss tracks. That fracture is what makes this story matter for the culture as a whole. Because Foolio was the culture in Jacksonville. He was what the streets produced when they gave someone a microphone. His music documented real deaths, real gang wars, real grief, and he did it without apology. The fact that those same real streets ultimately took his life and that real courtroom proceedings are now potentially handing death sentences to his killers closes a loop that the culture needs to sit with. Joe Budden's reaction captured the reflective side of this. Charleston White's reaction captured the cynical but not entirely wrong side. Youngeen Ace's contradictory response, "Do it," dropping the same day as Foolio's death, then the Instagram Live sympathy 3 weeks later, captured the messy, complicated reality of what beef actually looks like when it ends in a body. Fam, let me zoom out for a second and break down what this whole situation actually means. Because it's bigger than Foolio, bigger than Jacksonville, bigger than any one trial. What happened to Charles Jones is a case study in how the digital age has completely changed the stakes of street beef. In 2024, you could track somebody's location through their Instagram stories in real time. You could plan a murder based on birthday party flyers. You could celebrate a killing on social media within hours. And then prosecutors could walk into a courtroom and use every single one of those digital footprints as evidence to put you on death row. The streets and the internet became the same thing. And for these four men, that combination cost them everything. Foolio himself was not innocent of using social media as a weapon. He posted at rival grave sites. He dropped tracks naming the dead. He called out ops by name on the internet. Charleston White was not wrong, factually, when he said Foolio created the atmosphere. The cycle was real. But what the death penalty push against these four men says is that the atmosphere doesn't justify murder. Creating beef online does not make you a legitimate target for an execution-style ambush. Florida's justice system drew that line clearly. The use of rap music as evidence is something the entire hip-hop community needs to keep watching closely. In this case, a music video titled "Foolio Dead" was submitted as evidence of motive. The prosecution referenced Foolio's own music to establish the context of the gang war. "Who I Smoke" and "When I See You," songs with tens of millions of streams, became exhibits in a murder trial. This is the legal reality that artists like YNW Melly, like Young Thug, like Roddy Ricch, like dozens of others have been fighting against in various courts, that their art can be weaponized against them and against those connected to them. The question of what this verdict means for Jacksonville's drill scene specifically is one law enforcement there has been openly grappling with. Sheriff T.K. Waters promised after Foolio's death that his department would follow gang-connected individuals one at a time if necessary. The guilty verdict and the looming death sentences send a message beyond the courtroom walls that the state will pursue the maximum consequence for this type of planned, coordinated street violence when it can prove its case. And for the rap community watching from the outside, whether it's Meek Mill thinking about criminal justice reform, or Young Thug sitting with the knowledge of how legal systems work, or up-and-coming drill artists in every city watching how this played out, the lesson is uncomfortable but real. The streets do not have a statute of limitations. The digital trail does not disappear. The beef you put in a diss track can become evidence. The location you post on your birthday can become a murder plan. And the people who kill you can end up facing the death penalty in a Tampa courtroom 2 years later, crying on the stand while your mother pops a bottle of Don Julio in their honor. Foolio said it himself in an April 2024 Instagram post, just weeks before his death, referencing the tragic multiple attempts on my life. He knew. He rapped about it. And now those same streets that produced his music are producing a capital murder trial that could end with 4 lethal injections. As of today, May 13th, 2026, the penalty phase is ongoing. Sean Gathright testified Monday. The jury is hearing from family members of the defendants, from character witnesses, from anyone who can argue for mitigation. On the other side, prosecutors are laying out the aggravating factors: the premeditation, the coordination, the ambush nature of the attack, the fact that innocent bystanders were nearly killed when bullets flew through hotel room windows. Remember, 8 jurors is all Florida needs to recommend death. The judge makes the final call, but that recommendation carries enormous weight. These 4 men, Isaiah Chance at 23, Sean Gathright at 20, Rashad Murphy at 32, and Davian Murphy at 29, are looking at either spending the rest of their natural lives in a Florida prison or being scheduled for execution. At 20 years old, Gathright would potentially be sitting on death row for decades before any execution could be carried out, given how Florida's appeals process works. And Alicia Andrews, the girlfriend who booked the Airbnb, tracked Foolio's location, and fed coordinates to the shooters all night, she's still waiting for her own sentencing on the manslaughter conviction from October 2025. Her situation is tied up in appeals over judicial bias claims. Her story isn't over either. The cultural conversation about this case is still unfolding. Court TV live-streamed the trial. The verdict trended nationally. Foolio's mother has been on social media throughout, documenting the justice she fought for. And somewhere in the background, Youngeen Ace, still out here, still making music, is watching the conclusion of a chapter in a war that defined both their careers and ended one of their lives. This is what it looks like on the other side of beef. Not just the diss tracks, not just the viral moments, the courtroom, the death penalty, the mother reading a victim impact statement with her son's killers sitting 10 feet away. That is the ending that street politics produces when you follow them all the way to the finish line. Y'all, this case ain't done. The sentencing phase wraps this week. We're gonna find out whether these 4 men get death or life. And when that decision comes down, the rap world is going to have to respond to something that doesn't have an easy answer. Because this isn't about celebrating death or mourning the wrong people. It's about reckoning with a culture that turns real violence into entertainment and then acts surprised when that entertainment turns back into real violence. Foolio was real, his music was real, his death was real, and those 4 men in that Tampa courtroom facing the ultimate consequence, they are real too. What happens next is going to be one of the most significant moments in the ongoing conversation about hip-hop, gang culture, and accountability that we've had in years. Drop in the comments, do y'all think they should get the death penalty? And make sure you stay locked in because we're covering the sentencing the moment it drops. Real recognize real, and the realest thing about this whole story is that the streets eventually run out of road.